Welcome to the Mission After podcast, where we help veterans discover and execute on the most important mission of their lives. I'm your host, Mike Bledsoe. Our guest today is Will Burnett, a decorated veteran, father of four, husband, and dedicated practitioner in healing. With 10 years of hands-on and theoretical experience in biology, psychology, psychotherapy, and behavioral science, Will has pioneered new and innovative practices for healing trauma and medical conditions. He has achieved global influence in trauma healing and global impact ventures, as well as multiple Guinness World Records and ultramarathon running. Dedicated to integrating ancient wisdom and modern science, Will's commitment to healing and supporting others and achieving their ultimate state of living is both phenomenal and purposeful. He has traveled worldwide, working alongside leading industry thought leaders and facilitating at major summits in the US and Europe. By the end of this episode, you'll discover three major takeaways. 1. The journey from military life to civilian life involves struggles, self-discovery, and healing. 2. Hardship and challenges can be transformed into opportunities for personal growth and resilience. 3. The significance of effective communication and emotional awareness in creating meaningful work and life experiences. But before we dive in, I want to tell you all about our new resource available at themissionafter.org. It's called The 10 Surprising Military Habits That Are Sabotaging Your Career and Your Life. This guide will help you identify and overcome those habits. So be sure to download it at themissionafter.org. Now let's get into the conversation with Will Burnett. Oh, we got Will here. And the first episode where we have somebody, a veteran from a non-U.S. military. You're in the Australian military. Yeah, where do you, and well, we've known each other for, 4 or 5 years?
Yep.
Yeah.
5 years,
yeah. And I've been watching you do just extraordinary things. And from what I've gathered, you did not necessarily come from like extraordinary beginnings. Like the beginnings, there was a lot of hardship. If there's somebody listening, they go, oh, I don't know if I could do this because I've got this thing in my history. It's like, no, this whole show, no matter who I'm interviewing, is about like, how do we, we started at this position. We may feel like we're disadvantaged in some way, but the reality is we have a huge advantage, and this is how we apply ourselves to live the best life. Like our best years are ahead of us, not behind us. So, Will, can you tell us a little bit about, actually, I want to know why you went in the military and then why you got out.
When you get out and you go through that journey of self-discovery, because it's as long and as short as you want to make it, right? This transition from military life to civilian life. And one of my Achilles heels was that I could not admit to myself that I was at an advantage. Leaving the military, I was at an advantage. I just wanted to discourage myself from acknowledging that through the whole process, because it felt like that was so, like, this part of my life is so hurtful. There's some darkness there. I don't want to return to it. And so I set up these mechanisms. But like you said, that as soon as I become aware that I was at an advantage due to what I had been through in the military, man, the world changed for me. I got in, so I am Will Burnett the 7th, and I am...
Man, that's awesome. I love that.
My son is number 8, Will Burnett the 8th, and I am the 5th serving. So 5 generations of military men. I was not only raised, now looking back, I was not only raised in a military environment, I was raised by military people. And so that instills especially a young boy, that instills a couple things: a rebellious attitude, a never give up attitude, and a deep sense of wanting to know what else is there. I left professional soccer after 3 years playing professionally. I grew up in the ranks and then finally got a shot. And I left that because I hit that rebellious path really early. In fact, on my final final interview with recruiting, I had to call them and say I'm running late because I was actually in court because I got arrested. And I was waiting to get my sentence. And so I had to ring the chick at the front desk. And I distinctly remember because I said to my dad, "Can you do it?" And he's like, "No fucking way. It's time to grow up, young man." And I was like, okay. So I like haphazardly called this woman at the front desk. I'm like, "I'm going to be late. I don't know how late, but I'm going to be late." She's like, "Oh, okay. Can you give me an approximation?" And kind of gave her an approximation. And then she's like, "Okay, no worries. Is there anything we can do?" And I'm like, "No." And I tried not to go there. And then I went and got my sentence, and I was able to get over there, and I got in. I got into the military. I was accepted.
Hang on, what was the charge?
I was trying.
No one wants to answer.
Should have left that to the end and just left everybody hanging. I got done for trying to get a fake ID from our equivalent to the DMV. So silly me. I must have been just 16, maybe still in my 15s. And I went to the DMV with my cousin's credentials. We didn't even look alike. I'm like, I need to upgrade my license, et cetera, et cetera. False documents. And then she's putting everything through. She caught on that I was doing it, bless her. Didn't tell me that she'd caught on, but she caught on. And when she says, "Hey, please sign here so I can go print your new ID."
Oh my gosh.
And I go, "Okay, cool." And I go to sign, and I sign my name, not my cousin's name. She acts as if it's normal, goes out the back to do the printing. 2 constables walk in. Young William Burnett gets carted out the door. And the rest of that is history. But that just speaks to the kind of personality I had at that age. I left home at 14, and then I left for the military at 16 and 9 months. Had my 17th birthday at recruits, and I was ambitious about getting as much as I could out of the military. And I think my second or third year, I joined as a logistics operator, and second or third year, I was like, I am going to apply for Special Forces, and that's what I'm going to do for my career. And so as soon as I got hooked on that, it was anything and everything from training to being around them to the learning components of what the job entailed. It was so stimulating to me. It just fed every part of my soul, including the brotherhood, the camaraderie, the teamwork. Because I mean, you get a team full of rebellious people together. They're pretty creative. They're pretty creative. They're pretty effective as a capability. And I was searching for that as a young man. My dad was pretty disciplined, but he loved me a lot. But I think he got to a point where it was like, I'm either going to really hurt you from disciplining you, or I've got to take the hands off the wheel and let you go figure it out. And that's what he let me do, essentially. I got into a lot of trouble through my service, a lot of trouble. I was charged a few times. I had a few record of conversations. Just that lack of what I was searching for in the teams, And after I didn't get through selection, I chose to do a role which the US military is not. They don't have this as a capability. Physical training instructors. So essentially, you grab a strength and conditioning coach and you insert them in the military. Then you teach them how to run military PT and exercise and whatnot. And then once you get into that, you get to specialize in your own arena, your own realm of what you're wanting out of the health and wellness industry. I was largely passionate about human behavior and consciousness, and I was very interested in how the two linked, both from an environmental standpoint, influencing human behavior, and also this internal monologue that we have, which influences our internal rationale of the 4D landscape. And it was around about that time I started listening to Barbell Shrugged, and then got onto the Bledsoe show, and it was 3 or 4 episodes of ayahuasca talk, and I was like, all right, like I get the message, you know. But why I got out, I got to a point in my career where I was pushing my lifeline there, you know. I was really pushing the envelope in my professional sense and both in a physical sense. And I got very injured playing soccer outside of the military. I broke 3 ribs, tore a hamstring, and when I got back to work, none of my colleagues were in the. Oh, you've run out of free disk space.
Are you okay? Still recording. I think we're good.
Okay, good. None of my colleagues were in the section, and I had this huge schedule that I was to perform, including fitness assessments, unit PT, rehabilitation programs, and I could barely walk myself. And so when I did some research, looked at some chemicals that could heal tissue pretty quick, come up positive in a drug test, and got asked to leave the military.
Mm-hmm. All right. So was that like a dishonorable discharge? Is there equivalent of that in the Australian military?
If it was simply, you know, me just using that to get back to health and wellness, and I got caught, it probably would be. If I was using it disingenuously, maybe. But my CO was always impressed with me as a performer, and my credibility on base doing what I did was very high. And he knew my circumstances, what was going on. And there was also another investigation between myself and my superior running alongside of this. So it was a conflict of interest on their part because they stepped on themselves. And then that became apparent. And so he pulled me into the office. He goes, take your hat off. Okay. Sat down, took my hat off. This is the CO. And he's like, mate, you are an outstanding performer. You are an absolute asset to this unit. And we have this circumstance. I don't want you to dishonorably discharge and not be, not have access to medical, etc. with Veteran Affairs after. So what I'm offering here is for you a chance to go, I'm going to put in my discharge. I'll take my long service as pay, and I will be on my way. And I don't have to go in the reserves. I don't have to do anything like that. I can just be on my way. I said, acknowledge, boss. I would like to do that. He gave me a bit of a going away, you know, soiree with the unit. Nothing was ever said, but as you know, in the military, mate, it's a very close network. So people soon work shit out, and it comes to the surface.
Yeah. What was it like? What was your first day out like?
It was horrible. I had gone through a divorce during this time when I was getting discharged from the military. And I was also, so in Australia, when you're married, you have to separate for a total of 12 months, and then you can apply for a divorce, and then that's a process in itself and takes a little while as well before you're officially divorced. So it's a long process. Prior to my last deployment, I was going through this separation, and then I met my now wife on my last deployment. So as I was getting discharged, which didn't feel like I was, at the time, it didn't feel like I had that, like I was making the decision on my own. I felt like, at the time, I felt like I was being robbed. You know, I felt like I was just, I was in the military for 12 years, man. So I felt like it was, my family would just turn around like, get the fuck out of here. Go. Like, we don't want you to come back. That's what it felt like. And as I was going through that, I had my now wife joining me in Australia. She left the US to come live with me in Australia. And we had a miscarriage at this time, stress-induced, we now know. And so there was all these things piling up, man. So when my first day out, it was like I'm either gonna like really sink fast if I don't get my shit together, or like I can really use this to my advantage and go out, put myself in the world early, because I know the time between leaving and not. I've known military people before where they're like, oh yeah, I'm getting out and this is my date, but I've got like 3 months of long service before I get out. That time's tough, man. Like if looking back, I'm glad I went all in real quick, even though it was hard, but that time's tough. That's very hard for a lot of veterans to come out and have that space and be like, oh, do I like it out here? Do I not? Like, because it's so tempting to lean back into that comfort of stability in the military and what you know from an institutionalized standpoint. I found myself at an F-45 applying for a job.
Yeah.
That's as real as it gets.
Yeah. Yeah. So you went from feeling like, would you say like you had a family to just being cut loose, and now you're getting a job at, a fitness studio. Yeah. What was yeah, tell me about how that felt. Like, you said it felt bad, but like,
it was very intense because I wasn't at a point in my journey where I could acknowledge when the ego was playing a role. More or less, my ego was still well in and intact and running shop. And so I just stepped out of creating what's now an international rehabilitation program for military working dogs. I just spent 12 months developing this program, 6 months implementing it on the job. So getting in there and implementing the training and strategies to it going across the Commonwealth as a set model for rehab for military working dog handlers, to being in my lounge room with no job, with a wife, or a soon-to-be wife, 2 kids. We just had a miscarriage, and being like, I have to do something. I have to do something. And whilst it put me in a state of survival, I'm super grateful that it was such a Band-Aid effect.
Yeah. How long ago was that you got out?
2017.
2017. So you've been out for 7 years now. Yeah. Walk us through what the last 7 years have been like.
I have noticed that each year I've learned a little more and I've made less of the same mistakes. And that has come from firstly, when I got out, I went straight into, well, not straight away, but I was pretty close. I went into the Strong Coach program, at least the community. I'd been listening from afar for a while. I think your first episode when you had the Strong Coach podcast. And so it was acknowledging that, oh shit, there's some other homies out here that are trying to do the same stuff. Whether they're veterans or not, they're trying to better their lives. They're trying to help each other grow.
Yeah, I want to give the audience a little bit of a context, because I imagine some people don't know who I am, or like you've referenced a few things. Like I used to run a Barbell Shrug podcast. I had another podcast called The Bledsoe Show, which is my last name. And then I also started a program called The Strong Coach and had a podcast for that. And The Strong Coach was a program for health and fitness coaches to build out their businesses. And we tended to attract a specific type of like health and fitness coach. It was the type of coach that wanted a more holistic approach to health. There are a lot of people. You have a background in breath work, so we had people that were interested in breath work. The plant medicine. Not everyone was into plant medicine or psychedelic medicine, but people were aware of it at least, or there was plenty of people in there that were part of that conversation. So people who were not only interested in physical health, but psychological health, emotional health. There's a spiritual component. So we attracted that type of person. So we had cohorts of health and fitness coaches coming through and learning how to build their businesses, and also interacting with each other and picking up on skills. Like, there were a lot of people who wanted to be more holistic, but then they met someone like yourself. It's like, oh shit, I never even thought about breath work here. Oh, this guy's like he's a G at this. And so, so as William's talking about this, so you got out of the military, and within a year you were diving into Strong Coach program. And that's when you and I met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to, like, I was interested already in the psychological realm when I was in the military, especially the last 2 years. I'd spent so much time in the lab with the dog handlers that I got so refined with what I was looking for from a biomechanical standpoint, nutritional intake standpoint versus what they were doing rehab and in their social lives. I got so refined in that almost became the autopilot, and I started watching them as human beings interacting with canines.
Mm-hmm.
And that there became my ultimate fascination with, like, oh shit, like I'm looking at behaviors and I'm analyzing all the behaviors, from movement to body language to verbalization to a lot of things. And that, whether that fired off neural pathways to connect myself to that part of my brain, I'm unsure, but that set a lot of internal, like, curiosity and discovery off. That's what triggered me there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like you said, like, that community, I was so inspired by every single individual, because not only were they looking at a holistic approach to life, but a holistic approach to business in their professional lives as well. And so I surrounded myself with people that, to me, there was a level of accountability that was there. It was unspoken. It was like I used to trick myself, because I'd say, oh, you can't let them down. Make sure you do that to a really good standard. I was just saying that to myself, and that was the accountability. And that, I imagine if I had conversations with those people, and I have, they're like, yeah, well, I absolutely hold you accountable, And so I surrounded myself with these people, which forced me to go inwards. It forced me to, like, have a really deep look at who I was. And
Yeah.
I was 16 and a half when I got in the military. Like,
Yeah, that's really young. I don't in the US they won't let you in at that young. I know at one point you could have your parents sign off when you were 17, but I don't think they even do that anymore. I'm uncertain. But I do think they're actually opening it up to all sorts of people, because I think that recruitment's low. So we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, but so you got out, you started working, you joined the program. Was everything hunky dory after that?
no, it was not. I went through, like, even in my time in there, I went through a super dark couple years, man. Like deep suicidal depression, really, really bad. And because I threw myself in, I started a business as soon as I got out, because I couldn't work at F45. Not just, I didn't align with the programming and the intensity to which they were facilitating the program. Like, because I just stepped out of the rehabilitation realm. So I'm, like, at the other end of the scale now. And I didn't align. So I got out of there and started my own business. Once again, state of survival. And I just made mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, whether it was starting a business, choosing the partner, overcommitting myself, underselling myself. Like, it's just mistake after mistake after mistake.
Yeah, I want to note something here. It's really common for someone to get out of the military and then throw themselves into the career and then end up sacrificing themselves along the way. Like, one of the things in the Mission After program that we have, one of the first things that we cover is service and sacrifice, and how these two things become conflated. And like, and we separate these two things out. And I actually did that in the Strong Coach as well, because it's definitely most prominent in the military is thinking that I have to sacrifice myself in some way in order to be of service. But I do think it's just a blue collar mentality too. It's a blue collar thing, but in the military, it's like put on steroids, and that's why we started off in that program. And so it's so super common that I don't know what else to do. The military was my life, and so now I'm going to try to take that same energy and throw it into a career, and yet, you know, family life still suffers. My own psycho-emotional state is still suffering, and I believe that if I can create a really solid career, then that's going to solve the problem, right? But it almost never happens that way. It's like this idea that I'm going to do something externally and it's going to fix an internal issue just is an illusion. And so it's good to hear you say that, like, oh yeah, I did the thing that I thought was going to solve the problem, and then, you know, still had, like, sounds like suicidal ideation, and I chose business partners that didn't work out. Would you say that there was, like, you felt like you were doing the right thing, but looking back on it, you can see self-sabotage in your actions?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the law of attraction, you know, like, and I come to learn this the hard way. I left the military with a preconceived idea of who I was because I was this military identity. And the stubborn, arrogant part of myself wouldn't recognize that there was a rebirth occurring, you know, of me stepping out of that part of my life into a new part. And when I look back at every decision I made that fell to pieces, it was one, not researching enough, you know, not knowing enough of what I was trying to do, just feeling into it. You know, I did a lot of feeling into things without studying or strategically planning the drive or the mission. And the other thing is, when you're in that state, and I've referenced it a few times, like the state of survival is heightened arousal. The nervous system is in a sympathetic state, meaning it's just ready to run, kill, fight, whatever, maybe freeze. It was like that for like 2 years, man. You know, 2 years of just coming from this irrational, freaked out place and trying to, one, make ends meet, like, two, find out what the next thing is. And I learned that the hard way. Like, that wasn't easy at all. I was fortunate enough that I had an intervention. My wife and my dad, it got to a point where I was able to see the chaos I was causing. And when I saw both of their faces, I was just like, oh shit, I've got to change. You know, I've got to do something about this, because I'm destroying my life, all inclusive of everything that is in it. And that's not the way. It makes no logical sense to me to continue to do that simply because I don't know something. And so I made that switch early on in my transition out. I think it was 2018, 19 were my pretty dark years. And 2000, funnily enough, when COVID happened, that was when I was hitting my stride when COVID happened. You know, I was coming out and I was doing everything. And it's kind of a funny uprising, I guess. But I started to turn my attention and my awareness to what I had as a responsibility. And my responsibility was, I was experiencing these things and I wanted to pass them out into the world. So I was making better decisions for myself, for my family, and for my business. And progressively, I went back into that same lab that I had in the military with the dog handlers. I went back into that same lab, but this time I was testing everything that I'd learned, everything that I was studying, everything that I was practicing, from breath work, meditation, primal flow, some paleo style nutritional diets. Like, I was testing and playing with different things. And I have this one moment through that phase where I was down at the beach. I had just smoked some cannabis, and I took my dog for a walk, and I'm sitting down at the beach as I usually did, just cross-legged, nasal breathing, just looking at the horizon out on the ocean. And I had this profound experience just hit my body, just like hit my body, flood me with information. I would have said, in my experience, I was conversing with something, but it was just flooding my body with information. And I walked back home, put my dog away in the backyard, and I walk inside and I tell my wife, I'm going to run across Australia. And she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna run across Australia. And she's like, this is the moment I look at her, and I could tell that she knew I was serious, and also she was kind of angry. And she says, I'm gonna run across Australia.
But I want to rewind. What was the intervention talk?
So the intervention talk was my dad pointing out to me that this isn't what a man does. A man protects his family. He takes responsibility for his shit, and he gets up and he fucking makes shit happen.
Mm-hmm.
He gave me that talk, and I could see the disappointment in his face, and that I felt that. I felt that. And my wife's talk with me was less about the dialogue and more about what I could feel in her energy, what I could feel sitting in front of her, looking at my world in front of me. Like, I'm so obsessed with this person. I'm looking at my world, but not receiving that exact energy back. And that feels like a sense of losing something, or have lost something.
They were together when they had this conversation?
They were two separate.
Okay.
Two separate.
That would be a wild conversation. Wife with your dad. Shit.
Yeah.
It makes me look that bad, Dad.
Yeah, you gotta hold the standard.
All right. So you've had this intervention talk, and then you're like reflecting. You go to the beach, and you receive a message to run across Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember hearing about this. You're like, I'm gonna run across Australia. I'm like, what for? Because I'm looking at it from, like, he's supposed to be building a business, but now he's just going. You can't build a business while you're running across Australia. That doesn't make any sense.
But you can.
Yeah. And here's the other thing too. I love that you. I imagine, despite people like myself are like, I didn't discourage you from doing it. I was just in my own mind like, I don't know what the fuck. I'm a big believer. You got to let people do whatever it is they're gonna do, and I know that I have, quote unquote, gone off the rails and repeatedly done things over the years that nobody in my life understood. But I knew that I had to do it. Like, I remember I started podcasting in 2012. It's like I took the little bit of money I had and just invested it in a bunch of audio and video gear and started recording shit in my garage. And my family definitely didn't understand. My wife, who's now my ex-wife, at the time was like, he's just playing in the garage. Fast forward 2 years later, it's like, oh yeah, you got the biggest podcast, like one of the biggest podcasts on the planet, and you're making a bunch of money online, and you're interacting with the top experts in the world around health and fitness. Okay, all right, you did something, but Sometimes it's good. It's good to listen to people if they're like, you're fucking up, but also, you have to also listen to your own heart and know, like, oh, I may be taking a very unique path here. So you get the message. I'm gonna run across Australia. You tell your wife. Yeah. How does she respond? And what's the plan? Like, okay, you're just gonna run across Australia, but what for?
Yeah. And like you get good at seeing the difference between people's projections and reflections, and one is largely reliant upon that person's believability, and so I got really good at seeing that. So when I remember we were on a call when I told you were just about to go do the documentary, I think. Oh no, it was right before then, and I rang you to say thank you because I was going to do my documentary, and it was because you spoke about ayahuasca, and you're like, why? Because Mike.
By the way, look, the documentary he's talking about that I recorded will actually be that I was a part of it. I didn't lead it. I was just a part of it. Will be going up in June. So this should be dropping right before that documentary comes out.
Good. I'm good. I'm keen to see that. And mine's up on YouTube. It's called Unbreakable Will. It's a 45-minute documentary, and it's a truncated version of my story and the run itself and how it came about. Why I did the run. So when I got discharged, I went back because somebody told me I had access to medical support through Veteran Affairs, and I could already feel my body was severely injured. I used to say broken, but it wasn't broken. It was severely injured, and in fact, I had some pretty severe medical conditions that would have put me in a wheelchair had I not had addressed the circumstances in the way that I did. And so I ended up getting a retrospective medical discharge, and I was medically retired at the age of 27. And when I got into starting my own business and, self-development, I was studying all over the globe, actually, under some amazing human beings. And I was interested in the breath and how breath as a practice can create different states and changes in the body, psychologically, physiologically. It can create massive changes and shifts. And I was very interested in this. So I got on the internet. I looked at who the top five best practitioners were in the world. And one by one, I blew through my savings and went and studied with them. Some for 12 months, some for a lot less. Some were in person, some were not. Through that journey and studying with specific individuals, I went and studied psychedelics and psychotherapy. And the two together now being a harmonious package, I've seen a lot of shift there as well. And so I went and practiced these things. All right. After I had this download at the beach, I went away and I set myself an experiment to test these things: breathwork, meditation, visualization, movement, clean water, clean food, full UV spectrum, just doing the things that were said to help heal the body every single day, right? Every single day. I got a little bit of a payout from Veteran Affairs at this point of time, so I was able to have the space to do this research. And over time, I started to see patterns in my theories. And lo and behold, I went back for medical assessment. This was a 3-year journey. I went back for medical assessment and everything had disappeared, including some parts of the body, skeletal mainly, straightening itself out, like my spine, collapsed disc, coming back. Like,
you had back pain.
Oh man, I had arthritis, osteo and rheumatoid arthritis in nearly every single joint from my shoulders down to my feet.
Yeah. Yeah, I talk to veterans all the time, but especially the guys that were airborne, and they just have all these. Their backs are just fucked up, just like they're just in pain, and it's interesting because when I talk to them, they go they've already accepted it as it's permanent,
Mm.
or they've had a discotomy, they've had some type of surgery, and they've just accepted they're going to be in pain every day for the rest of their life. And I remember I was talking to a guy a couple weeks ago. We were in Vegas, and he was like, "Yeah, I was asking him about pain in his body, and I was like, "Yeah, that's repairable. You don't have to be in pain." He goes, "Well, the doctor said." I was like, "No, man, no, no, no. Uh, if you want to stay in pain, just keep listening to what the doctor said. And if anybody tells you that this is permanent, like the pain is permanent, keep looking. There is another way. It's nothing is permanent. Now, if they've installed some hardware in your spine, I'm not saying that you're going to be able to just rip that out, but you also don't have to experience pain even with that too. So there's always something out there. Keep looking. Keep looking.
Absolutely. It's like I mean, my journey specifically, I was also researching whilst healing my body. And so it's quite a strange space to be in. I remember reading just some little snippets through the Red Book, through Carl Jung's Red Book, or even the Black, actually, it was in the Black Books. Just little pieces of that I could relate to when he was, when he was putting himself into a psychosis just to study, just to study the mind. I really related to that because I was in this space of healing, but also like playing this observer whilst I'm in the space, and it was quite funny in a sense and very empowering as well. In that time, as you say, there is something else all the time. What I learned was pharmaceuticals were fucking with my system. That just something as uh, small as paracetamol, just as an over the counter would mess with my system. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't get words out. And if it's doing that, then what else is it doing? That was like my curiosity was like, okay, well, these things aren't working. What if I stop using them? Okay, I'll be in a bit of pain, but I can think better. And if I can think better, I can create better. If I can create better, then I can execute better, you know? And so I just cleaned everything. I just detoxed my life and cleaned everything. Even going back through relational struggles where I got to close a loop there. I got to go back and add an apology here. I got to go back and I got to cut this person out of my life. I got to bring that one in. Like that was what detoxing my life meant. And it wasn't fucking easy by any means. I was actually felt more heartache through that than the actual run itself. Because by the time I got to the run, which was the final experiment, it's like, okay, Will Burnett's supposed to be in a wheelchair right now, but here he is running an ultra marathon for 81 days straight across Australia. Tell me this shit doesn't work. Tell me it doesn't work. So that was the intention, was to create an experiment to deliver a message so that it can be heard, and then start the education piece, then start the building piece, which it was hard because when I was in the strong coach, I was there to build a business, and everything that was in there, I was like, I'd have it done. It like landed. My speed of implementation was super fast. I was on it, but somewhere in my body, I was like, I'm missing a step here. I'm missing a step, and I think it needs to be this piece first, so that this business piece can grow later. And that's the phase I'm in right now. It's that grow phase of the business part. It's the building of systems, because that thing is done.
Yeah, that was it. Oh man, I am loving hearing this. And um, another one of the things that made our program different than others, and it made it very hard to market in a lot of ways, because anyone who's in the health and fitness world and they interact with these business coaches, all these business coaches are like, have it. And I've marketed this before too, but it's not really it's not really why I started the Strong Coach. It was, I had made a bunch of money as a coach, and I realized that I still was really dissatisfied and unhappy. And I realized I had built a business that was just not aligned with what I wanted to create, even though it was generating all this income. It generated all these earnings that allowed me to, you know, have the house at the beach and like travel around and do all the cool things and meet cool people and have the status. And yet I was still really dissatisfied. So when I left a really successful company, which was called Barbell Shrug, and I took a 6 months off from doing anything. And in that 6 months, it hit me one day. I go, oh, I am going to create a business that helps health and fitness coaches avoid the same problem I hit, which is like, yeah, money is there, but you really got to create something that you love. Like, you really got to be following your heart. And so going out on the internet and saying, hey, I'm going to help you build something you love and you're going to make money doing it. I also have to add the caveat, like, I can't promise that you're going to even make a sustainable wage within 90 days, because I'm way more interested. By the way, I do work with a handful of health and fitness clients who are influencers. Currently, I have 2 of them, and I work in 18-month contracts now. Like, I don't work with you for 90 days because I know I don't. If we work for 90 days, we're not gonna. We might be able to get you to $10,000 months, which is what most people desire to have, like, quote unquote financial freedom. But you might end up building something you hate, or you might build it so hastily that it consumes all of your time and you don't actually get to take care of yourself anymore, because a lot of this grind mentality uh, it'll work for a period of time until it stops working, and then you don't know how to build a business without grinding. What good is that? That's not good. So it took you longer than even 18 months, and I think that's okay. That's beautiful. It warms my heart to hear, like, oh, okay, I was able to take some of those lessons. It contributed to where you're at now. And it sounds like you had to find all sorts of other things along the way. That was just a piece,
Mhm.
you went out and did a bunch of work on your own. Uh, and you ran across Australia. I
I
remember
did.
following that. When you set the date to run across, were you pain free? Had you like felt like you'd really healed your body, or was there still like a race against time to go, okay, I need to get even healthier before I initiate this run?
Well, it's the project itself. So the objective was to run an ultra marathon a day. So that gave me 50 kilometers above, 50 plus.
So 50K a day for however many days it takes to get across Australia.
81, 81.
Just
But
just a 50K one time makes me. I was like, ah, fuck.
well, that was so I gave myself that room, but it ended up being 56 every single day, nearly. There was a plus or minus when I was injured, and a few more where I did extra. I did like an 80, a 60. I did a few 60s. I did 100, and then the final. And that was what was so cool. You can't plan for something like this, Mike. Like you can prep the body, and trust me, I spent 3 years prepping the body. I trained the nervous system. I trained my adrenal system. I trained my metabolic system. I trained my aerobic, anaerobic. I trained everything, everything. And I got coaches. I had experts there on the sidelines, and I had the wheel the whole time. And still, after that first day, I was like, "Holy fuck, this is gonna be massive! This is gonna be massive!" And you get to a point where one, it starts hurting. So week 2, I broke my right foot. I had multiple stress fractures in my right foot. End of week 3 or 4, I tore my MCL in my right leg, and then week 5, I had a micro tear in my left piriformis. And if you're looking at the body, folks, and you look at and you start at the right foot and just work your way up and across, it's the compensatory behavior due to an undulation like on the road. So I was running on a camber and just repetitive,
Yeah.
repetitive. So I'm at week 5 with all 3 of these injuries, and at no point that was one point, and it wasn't like I was sitting down. I was actually walking because of these injuries, still doing the ultras, and I stop and I ring my buddy, who's my support. He's my only support out there on the road. My wife and kids are at the trailer park. And I rang him. I said, "Can you come back, please?" He says, "Yep." He comes back. And between the time he turned around to come back to me, which is about a minute and a half, and when he got to me, I was in this serious contemplation of whether I'm going to continue this. And it was a minute and a half, 90 seconds, and he gets to me. I see his face, and I go, "False alarm, brother. I'll see you at the next stop." And he goes, "Okay." He's on the radio. He's like, "Everything all right?" And I'm like, "Everything's fine, mate. Everything's fine." But I had to achieve the 50 a day. And so I continued to walk for 12 days. And during the walk, here I am in the laboratory, in my own experiment, in the darkest part that I could have perceived possible. And I'm like, "What are you going to do, Will? What are you going to do? You're going to roll over and fucking call it? Or are you going to suck it up, dig back into what you know, tune back into the body, and start to recover and build back what needs to be built back?" So 12, 13 hours of walking on the road, that's a lot of time to be focusing on the breath, chanting, mantras, listening to binaural beats, eating good food, drinking lots of water, moving. It's a good time to do all of that. And at the end of I think it might have been 11 days, actually. At the end of the 11 days, it was like the scene from Forrest Gump, bro. You know the scene where he's in his braces and they start to come off while he's sprinting?
Yeah.
That's me just hauling ass across Australia, just like, "I'm running again."
Holy shit. So you got injured and you just literally walked it off.
Yes. Yes.
Oh man. What was
There wasn't as many oranges, though. I don't remember seeing the oranges.
what was the rest of that run like? So that was what you said, 5 weeks in? You were at that point? 5 or 6
Yeah.
weeks in? Yeah.
5 weeks in.
That was about halfway.
It was beautiful. It was so beautiful. Like, I was in such a balanced place in my body, in my spirit, in my head. I was so balanced to the point. I had three separate occasions where I nearly got killed by road trains. So they're like hauling ass towards me, and I've got less than a shoulder's width to run on of road before it falls off into gravel. And they had hooked down. So in Australia, the logistics, they import foreigners, and then they put them through a 2-week driving course, and then they gas them up and send them on the road, and they're crazy, man. But
what do you mean? These are professional drivers? People driving trucks or what?
these are people that will work for a very low amount of money and do long hours on the road, and yeah, it's not a good situation. And when that's hauling at you, you're looking at 120 miles an hour, hauling, and it's 50 meters long, and three times, separate times, I nearly got killed. I'm talking just moved out of the way, nearly got killed.
Oh my God.
And I knew I was in a balanced place. After each time, I was rattled, but could instantly bring myself back into my body, breathe my way through it, and just be like, "Hey, you're still here, bro. You're still here."
Yeah. Let's talk about, I want to talk a little bit about something that happens in the military, which is like this. There's this way of getting through hard times, which is suppressing the experience, right? What's happening emotionally. Like almost everybody I talk to, I haven't run into anyone who says otherwise, is you go through these stressful experiences and you just got to suppress your emotions, and you gotta just, any pain you're feeling, anything that's pain, you just gotta like stuff it away and then just keep going. And then by the time you get out of the military, you don't really know how to feel anymore. But it sounds like you were very engaged with the full experience, the full human experience, while you're going through this really painful thing. You're getting rattled by cars almost killing you, and you're able to recenter yourself. Would you say that you were having the experience of having a full human like feeling experience and still being able to hold that center?
Yeah, it's absolutely, man. Like my short answer to that is emotions it's this universal language, like, and when you can understand emotion, it really is the key to unlocking what I'm experiencing as the human experience, because it gives you this framework on how to understand each one and how it relates to the body. And then when you experience it, you get to piece the two together. It's like, oh, I'm experiencing this thing in this moment, this place with this person. Link, right? That's how kids learn. They put two and two together. And so learning, especially the way I process emotions, learning how to do that, like that's ultimately what saved my life. That is ultimately what stopped me from taking my own life, was feeling it. Fucking feeling it, man. Like I said, I'm 5th generation military. I was raised by some pretty hard dudes, and emotions were not highly encouraged.
How long did it take you to get to a place where you could feel it?
I remember the initial stages, and look, my perspective on feeling it, I believe, is an always evolving landscape. Because I don't know how many times I've felt something and gone, that was the greatest amount of joy I've ever experienced. And then you experience it again and it goes a little further and you're like, oh, that was the greatest, it's always evolving. But I remember the first moment where I felt less desensitized to emotions than normal. And it was when I was at my first ayahuasca retreat. And I remember feeling this immense beauty, is how I would describe it, because it was an assortment of emotions. It was joy, happiness, love, compassion. It was beauty to me. And I remember feeling it in my body and just being at peace with it. Just like, wow. Wow. There's nothing else right now. This right now. Like, I remember coming back into my body the very next day, and this was the second time I felt less desensitized, was the love from the people around me. Some of these people, I had no idea who they were. We're all strangers, But there was this immense love that was there and shown and felt. And I was like, why am I choosing to feel these other things, which more than likely I'm bringing on myself, super negative, dark, weighted? Why am I choosing to bring these in instead of this, like this? This is amazing.
So you started seeing it as a choice.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. That unlocked the door for you to be able to access that outside of an ayahuasca experience.
I wanted to share it with someone. And in that discovery, it's like, oh, okay, well, this is the thing. Of course love's the thing, right? Like,
it's always like, nah, it couldn't be that. Couldn't be that. It's too simple. Too simple. Like,
of course.
Gosh, it is that simple. It's like simple but not easy, because
Right.
it's that ego which you were referencing early in the show. Is like that ego steps in and creates that separation from the experience of love. The
Yeah.
all the reasoning, all the thinking, all the shoulds and should nots and all that mess. Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
the mind is so powerful and it's so useful, and it can be used to destroy or it could be used to create. And so much of the population only knows how to use it to destroy.
Mm.
And when you find the keys to get out of the mind, get into the body, get into the heart, experience love, and then you realize that the mind is actually a tool for us to use to create and not who we are, then it gets beautiful. Then possibilities open up. Then the life that you have ahead of you is so much more than you could have imagined. And the the past, the history of yourself just becomes comical in a way. It's like it can be sad, there can be grieving, there can be like, oh my gosh, why did it take so long? But also going, wow, that's exactly what I had to experience in order for me to have this right now. And everyone that had any type that darkness that I experienced gives me the ability to go and grab that person who's in that darkness that I know so well that I was there. And I can now say, hey, I'm going to help you move from this darkness to the light. And there's something here for us. So, yeah, appreciate you doing that work.
Oh, brother. I used to use this. Thank you. I used to use this analogy. It was a visual piece in a course I used to run, and I see us as humans our biology is very similar to that of a mushroom, right? And the way I used to explain it is our heads are more or less the piece that is connected to source or the network or whatever you want to call it. And from the head being connected, we get to come down into the heart. And the heart is the engine that drives the vehicle, which is the body, the fruit, the thing that behaves in nature. And the more you honor the heart's highest vibration, that being emotions that can be experienced in the material world, the more you can honor that, the slicker and more efficient your vehicle will run, or your fruit will grow. And for the most part, we're having this circuitry malfunction where there's that information's trying to come in, but we're compressing it back down and sending it back out. Right? And I've really come to a point where I need to remind myself of that often, because the ego, it can get around and decorate for you, or it can get around and fuck shit up, It can do it if you don't keep a leash on it, but you learn to work with it. And that's where I've really come to this desire of reminding myself, hey man, plug back in, clear the channel, let the body go back to fruiting how it needs to fruit.
Yeah, it's a good reminder. It's not a one and done. It's not like you didn't go drink ayahuasca one time. You're like, got it. Now everything's gonna be so good. It's continuous. It's continuous. You get to keep yourself in check. You know what? You'd get bored if it weren't that way. So
absolutely,
be thankful. I'm gonna take us a break real quick.
You're good.
So we had a beautiful conversation about emotion, and I want to dive to what was it like to complete that run?
I felt complete. Like I felt like I was closing a cycle, ready to move on to the next one. And I wanted to see, like, especially towards the end, I started doing some calculations offline. So no one in the camp, my wife or my friend who my only support, not even them knew about the calculations I was doing, because I was planning to run a 24-hour on the last day. And they had no idea. And so we're nearing the finish line and they're starting to do the math and being like, you have to run this today. Like, what? And I'm like, no, it'll be right. And so I planned this run. It was 24 hours. And I'd strategically done the math in kilometers from one destination to the finish line. I did some research on what the expected time would be for somebody of my physicality, and looked at the 3 highest scoring times for that distance. I was like, okay, that's what we're going to do. I've got to achieve 111, 112 miles in 24 hours. It's the final day of my run. Like, I got to do it. And the intent there was to really push the mind, really push and see, after everything that I'd been through on the run, like, not just physically, but mentally, what's under the hood,
Yeah.
And I did. I completed it in 24 hours right on the minute. I completed it, the final step.
Oh shit.
And that was the most emotional part, because I only had another, I think it was like another 10 kilometers into town. So I didn't do the run fully to the beach. I wanted to leave a bit so we could capture someone for the documentary, so I could run into the beach in daylight. So I had 10 Ks left, but that one there where I finished, that was it, because everybody that was there, and the only one that wasn't was my wife. She was at home at this house that we hired or rented with the kids. So I knew I could have my moment with my brothers that had supported me, and they held me and they carried me, including my coach. He ran with me for the last leg. And then I could go home to my wife and celebrate in a different way,
Yeah.
something we'd done as a team, as a couple, because she's the real MVP. She hauled the caravan across the country with the kids, set up camp every day, fed the kids, did all the washing, made all the arrangements logistically,
Nice. What so you filmed that and you complete, what is life like after that? Okay, we got all this footage. Do I have to go get a job now? Like, what's going on for you?
I had that thought, actually. Oh, shit, I gotta get a job. Yeah, when I finished, I went into another poor business decision, but great experience nonetheless. And it actually triggered why I'm here today in the States. Me having that role was the catalyst to why I'm sitting here right this minute. And went back into a business and was coaching. And then I started to develop my own tech, and I'm pitching investors, and I'm doing pitch decks, and I'm doing tech dev stuff and app dev stuff. And I'm like doing all this stuff completely different to coaching, hemorrhaging money, trying to stay afloat, trying to chase the dream. And once again, I had to sit down and have another moment where I rebalance, collect myself, and be like, hey bro, it's okay. Just relax, relax. And I did that, and through a series of events, I landed here in the United States in pursuit of developing my own tech, and then have since collaborated, and I've accepted a role at my friend's company doing a very, very similar project, and more or less being able to integrate the lessons I have learned over the last however long I've been out of the military, 7 years.
Yeah. How many businesses did you participate in the last 7 years? Like how many jobs did you have, and how many businesses did you start?
I started 6 businesses. And by businesses, some of them were projects as well, where there was a lot of dev R&D required in the initial days. And then they're ones where you don't get excited about whether you're going to make money soon or not. It's like, this is sweat equity,
Yeah.
So 6, and I got 2 jobs. Yeah, I was at one F45, and then I got moved to another for a higher paycheck, and then since then it was like on my own.
Yeah. So you started 6 businesses. Are any of them still running? How's you had partners and you left and they're still going, or how's that working?
We had mutual closure, so both of us decided we'd close it and split the difference. We had payouts. One of us paid out, and we had one just close, and it was quite hostile, that one as well. And then one's still going. Yeah. So 1 out of 5.
Yeah.
1 out of 6. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to bring that up because so many guys are like, I'm going to do this business, and I want to point out it's so normal for your first business to not work out. Your second business, I'm on my 8th. Like 8 in 16 years of entrepreneurship. It's the idea that you're going to start your next thing and that's what you're going to do from now on. Very rare. It does happen. Some people start a business and that's what they end up doing, and that's it.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people who look at like Evan Hafer or something like that, the guy from Black Rifle Coffee. It's like, yeah, he basically started that when he was getting out or while he was still in, and that's become his thing, and so on and so forth. It's like, yeah, that's unusual. That's unusual. And I'm sure he's had some other, I don't know him, but I'm sure he's had some ventures that didn't quite work out as well, and so
absolutely.
I think it's easy for people to see where someone is at now and go, oh yeah, he figured it out. Like, I'm failing at my first or second business, and maybe I'm not cut out for this. It's like, no. Look, the only failure is if you quit. If you quit trying, right? Like, if you give up, that's failure. But dude, you have no idea. Like, honestly, if you get out of the military and you open a business, you have no idea what you're doing. Like, and that's okay. That's totally okay. Anyone who starts their first business has no idea what they're doing. I don't care if you went and got an MBA. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Like, it's
the map is not the terrain.
Well said.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I want people to get that, because some people I interview, it's about career and all that, and we're covering a lot of different topics here, but that's one of the things I want to cover is like, you're doing something that fits in your heart's calling now, and is really awesome, which I want you to go into here. But I want everyone to also be aware that it was not a straight line. There was a lot of pain and suffering, as you heard William say. There was like a hostile ending to partnership or whatever, and closing down businesses aren't fun. I've had to close down a couple. I've had to exit with partners when we were not on great terms. I ended up in a lawsuit once exiting a company, and it gets crazy. It gets crazy.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does.
But it's also okay. It's great. So just want to point that out. Yeah, dude, tell us what you're up to now, because I know what you're doing. I know the secret, but
I got the inside scoop.
Yeah, got the inside scoop. But yeah, What are we working on now?
Well, after my journey, like there's one thing I wanted more than anything for this next stage, and that was meaningful work and meaningful relationships. All right, like I'd heard Ray Dalio speak about it, and I'd been like talking to myself about it through journaling about what I was after, what I was searching for. I want to work with my friends, do fun shit, and really have purpose and intention behind it. I want to do that. And a lot of people, and I've experienced this myself, when you go into business with friends or family, there is this narrative and stigma there around it not being successful, and that can happen. And I've also found that when you find like valued people who value the same things in life as you do, you can create really good relationships and work becomes super meaningful. And you could do that with anything. You and I could go and pick a subject tomorrow and be like, hey, stay true to each other. Yep. Hold you accountable. Yep. Cool. Let's go. And we'll have some fun.
Yeah.
And that's quite hard to find. That's quite hard to come across. When I moved here to the States, I was moving to develop my own tech. And then I pivoted, within a week and actually joined a friend of mine who's developed some wearable technology that reads emotions real time. And we've just launched the beta test with a few of the verticals and still going through that process. We aim to be out to market end of this year is the milestone. But the beauty of this tech, Mike, is like we've been able to build something. Actually, she has been able to build something. She did the work. Been able to build something that is so innovative and at the same time so exciting, because with an asset like this, we get to discover what the new landscape is. We get to discover what we get to introduce to the world so we don't fuck it up, so we don't go back into these holes that we've put ourselves in the mental health landscape environment, and it's a huge responsibility, but such an exciting one, so we've put a lot of focus into working alongside veterans. You can just imagine how much of an asset this tool is and will become. But the data initially received through the testing phase, it's wild. Like it's wild.
Yeah. So the ability to have a objective measure of something that is up and throughout all of history has been a subjective experience is going to help. So many people are unaware of what's happening emotionally for themselves, but to have a wearable come up on an app and say, hey, this is like, you're actually draining yourself from day to day. And there was this moment in time where you felt stress, like what was the external thing that may have caused that? And so you can start. Sounds like a fantastic tool. Like it's gonna change some lives, because I believe that most people go their entire life without having that full human experience, and that's sad. And there's also, there's a lot of tools that will give you access to that, and not everyone is ready to go down that road. And a wearable and an app could be a bridge that's going to allow millions of people to cross over into that experience that might have otherwise gone their whole life without it.
And that's the vision here is, for what we have available to people, specifically in conversation veterans, for mental health care, what we have available, the same problem still exists. We need to learn about emotions, how to express them and process them, and how to communicate them. Because we can sit in front of someone all day, every day, and just talk back and forwards. It can feel good because you let some stuff off your chest. We can do psychedelics, but if you cannot experience emotion at the level that it arrives, process it, be able to communicate it effectively, we're still going to be at the same point. So the idea here is to provide the user an opportunity to experience it and then see it in front of them. And the app itself, the machine learning model actually starts to build a score or a picture over time. And the more data it gets, the more it learns about who you are, where you operate, where your habits are, and it'll start to market and graph it for you. So now we can actually say, I experienced this level of arousal and these emotions were relatable at that moment in this location with this person at this time. Now we can start to learn. And then eventually the next step is, well, what can we provide to help come back to balance? You know, and that gets exciting to think about as well. What can we provide? There's a series of things, but we give people the opportunity to have it available here from the ground up. You know.
Beautiful. Can you say the name of it, or is this still a secret?
No, it's called In Truth. So intruth.io. People can go check that out. Yeah, it's a phenomenal exercise in learning about what we're doing, what the future looks like, and how we can have an impact on so many people, you know. And that's taken me 7 years, bro, to get to a position where, you know, I've been through the practitioner and coaching chapter of my life. I mean, I've been a coach for over 20 years now, but that last little segment, I've been through that chapter and I've consistently seen the same thing. We're always limited with how far we can take our practices or our therapies because of legislation or because of social expectations or because of lack of education. We're always limited. And I just got to a point where I'm like, we need to do something extra. We need to set up the next chapter of whatever that looks like. And there needs to be people doing it. And there are. There's amazing people all over the globe doing it. So it's like many hands make light work. Let's get to work, you know?
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, and you're also giving us a little bit of input in the Mission After program. Giving more than a little input, giving me some great input on how to improve that program. You know, if it's the same program in a year from now, I'd be disappointed. We're in the initial stages of it, and in a year from now, it's going to look amazing. So, yeah, we're doing similar work, but in very different ways, and I love that we're going to be able to collaborate moving forward. Anything else you want to leave the folks with?
If I could leave one thing, it's that emotional piece. You know, it's just be curious about emotions, your own emotions. Be curious about it, and watch my documentary, because if there's one message that can be driving home this curiosity, it's like, ask for help when you fucking need it. Ask for help. The people that want to help you will help you. They absolutely will. There will be no judgment. They'll carry whatever needs to be carried. That will occur. So ask for help when you need to. And also know that it's actually empowering to be able to communicate your emotions. And it's a little extra when you can communicate them effectively to the right people. That is so empowering.
Well said.
And we get to create meaningful work and life out of it.
Right on. Where can people find you?
Well, I'm back on the gram. My account got hacked and deleted.
I saw that.
So that happened right, like, at a pretty pivotal moment too. So,
Oh, geez.
I'm on the gram. I'm rebuilding my account. We're going back up again. The Mind Mechanic _, is my handle on Instagram. Or they can jump across to the website intruth.io and see what's happening. You can register to become part of the beta testing program, or if you're interested in taking a look deeper into the project, you can express your interest there as well.
Excellent. Thanks, William. Appreciate you, brother.
You're welcome, bro. Of course.
Much love.
Much love.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of The Mission After. Before we wrap up, I want to remind you about our free resource, the 10 surprising military habits that are sabotaging your career and your life. This guide is packed with valuable insights to help you overcome common challenges faced by veterans transitioning to civilian life. Don't miss out on this opportunity to take control of your career and life. Head over to themissionafter.org to download your copy now. It's completely free and could be the game changer you're looking for. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow veterans and friends. Your support helps us reach more people and make a bigger impact. Until next time, stay curious, stay intentional, and remember, your mission after service is just beginning.